Good evening, everyone. I am 𝗂𝘁𝘁𝗲𝗿, Geomatics Engineer and Treasurer at NGES. I'm currently working as a survey officer at the District Survey Office, Mugu. Now I would like to welcome you all at the talk program of Geospatial Technology for Disaster Risk Reduction on the occasion of International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. On the behalf of our NGES member, I would like to speak about NGES. NGES is the Professional Society of Geomatics Engineers in Nepal, which is established with the aim to promote the application of geospatial technology across the various sectors in the country. And the society works for the safeguarding of professional right and responsibility of geomatics engineers, while broadening the application area of geospatial technologies. And this event is organized with the motive to aware the people of importance of geospatial technologies for reducing the risk of disaster, that will happen in the futures. So don't wait for the disaster to happen, because it's better to prepare than to repair. So we know how the geospatial technology are important for disaster preparedness, response management, and risk reduction. So mapping is the foundation for analyzing the hazard, vulnerability, and the capacity through a scientific methodology. So we know how the digital mapping and database development is important for risk assessment, as well as drone use of drone for the risk assessment, post risk assessment, for resource, so on. So moving forward, we have our fourth presenter for this program. Let's introduce. First, we have Mr. 𝗂𝘁𝗲𝗿. He is the DRR practitioner, founder, president of ISRR. So we have Mr. 𝗂𝗁𝘁𝗲𝗿, he is the disaster service manager in the open mapping of Asia Pacific. So we have Mr. 𝗂𝗁𝘁𝗿𝗏. He is the executive director of Youth Innovation Lab. So we have Ms. 𝗂𝘁𝗁𝗁𝗏 Gurung. She is the information and the data preparedness lead of emergency preparedness and response project second at WFP. Following that, we have three panelists. So we have to introduce them. We have respected Janak Joshi sir. He is the Joint Secretary at the Ministry of Land Management, Cooperative and Poverty Alleviation. So, and we have respected Dr. 𝗂𝘁𝘁𝗏𝗏 Adhikari. He is the Deputy Director of Center for Disaster Studies, IOU. And so on, we have respected Dr. Srijan Bahadur Malla. He is the DRR expert and activist. And so for panelists, we have moderator Mr. Sunil Bhogati. So moving forward, before the presentation, I would like to hand over this floor to our secretary, Mr. Sunil Bhogati sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Benita. So good evening, everyone. So we are now moving forward is early warning system and early action for all is the theme for this year International Disaster Risk Reduction Day 2022. And being the geomatics professional who are expert in mapping and industry, I have one question for you. I hope we will be. I also ask everyone to unmute themselves. Let's make this floor quite interactive. So you can always send your messages or you can always reach out to us through the chat section. So you can introduce yourself over there. So being the geomatics professional, I have one question for every one of you that what can happen if we can map the disaster before, during, and after the phenomenon? This is one of the questions. So you can always write your thoughts in the chat section. So if we can map the disaster, then we can actually prevent it from the happening. We can reduce its cause and effect. We can save the life and strengthen infrastructures. We have numbers of specialists and experts in the field. So moving forward, as Benita has already introduced our speakers, we have quite very expertise and very motivated who are going to inspire us with their stories, how in the disaster risk reduction, how their action is actually changing the course of the disaster. So our motive will be to actually prevent the disaster. So I want to introduce to our first speaker for this presentation section. Excuse me, there are certain technical difficulties. So I guess, okay, there are certain technical difficulties that my friends and colleagues are facing with. I hope everyone will be unmuting themselves. So let me first introduce to our first speaker for this event. Let me introduce to you to Mr. 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Disaster Service Manager at Open Mapping Hub Asia Pacific. Harry has been part of the OpenStreetMap since 2012. He has previously worked with humanitarian OSM team Indonesia for 8 years before joining with the Open Mapping Hub, a regional representative of HOT in the Asia Pacific region as a disaster service manager since 2021. In his current role, it supports, assists, and connects the local communities and partners in disaster management sector through mapping related activities using OSM and open source technologies to increase disaster resilience and reduce disaster impact through data-driven decision-making in all stages of disaster phases. So floor is all yours, Mr. Harry. You can take over.
Thank you, Mr. Sunil. So good evening, everyone. My name is Harry. It's really nice to meet you all. Firstly, I want to thank for the invitation to invite me into this beautiful event. And today, in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share about OpenStreetMap, especially its relation to the disaster management context. So if I can share my screen, is that okay? If I can share my screen and,
Yeah, go on.
And changing the poster to my screen. So yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen now, right? So you can see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yes. So I'm from the Open Mapping Hub Asia Pacific. So we are the representative of humanitarian OpenStreetMap team in the Asia Pacific. So Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, or HOT, is an international NGO that dedication its work to the humanitarian action using open mapping technology. And open mapping, one of the open mapping technology that we use as our center of our work, it's OpenStreetMap. So our focusing in this region is to also promote OpenStreetMap in humanitarian sector, including disaster, and also to create a more vibrant OSM community and ecosystem in the region, in the 25 priority countries, including Nepal. So that's a little bit brief introduction from me, like where I work, so you can get more understanding about the decision that I'm going to share with all of you. So like I said, in our organization, we are using OSM as a center of our work, meaning that we use this kind of map. So what is OpenStreetMap? Maybe some of you already familiar with it. Maybe some of you already years of experience using it, but maybe also there are a couple of people who doesn't really know or maybe have a little knowledge of OSM. So basically, OSM, OpenStreetMap, is a digital map of the world. So you can see the map through the internet. But the difference with the OSM and other digital maps, for example, we can say like such as Google Maps, is besides you can see the data free, you can also contribute the data on the map. So if the other digital map it's really collected, separately by those provider, in OpenStreetMap, all the data. So if you take a look at Nepal, for example, so all the data that at the moment existing in Nepal is not contribution from HOT only, but it's contribution for all over the Nepal OSM community or even from around the world. So this is the beautiful thing about OpenStreetMap. And because of this, characteristic, it's really can become a really good alternative for you to get the geospatial data sources to support your work, including in the disaster sector. So regarding the context of disaster for OpenStreetMap, why HOT also using this kind of OSM OpenStreetMap into the disaster context? Because in disaster, it is really important to really aware about our location and using OSM, because you can participate, you can map, you can gather all of your local knowledge in that area. You not only can so those kind of knowledge can be put into one media, and which is OSM, and people that you involve on the process will be more aware about the risk, about their capacity, so it can become they can become more resilient in the process of the mapping activity itself. So we're not talking only about technical aspect in OSM, but also using this kind of process of participatory mapping, you can involve like older generation that really have local knowledge to map their area, to put more critical information like what's important actually that we need to map whenever disaster happen, and can be useful for our future analysis if you're talking about disaster risk reduction. So I think that's a little bit brief knowledge or definition about OpenStreetMap and its relation to the disaster context. So I am going to move a little bit like how actually you can contribute in OpenStreetMap. So OpenStreetMap is designed to make sure that all people can contribute. I said all people. So OpenStreetMap, it's allow not only geographer, not only geometric people, not only people who has a GIS background that can only contribute on the map, but everyone, because we try to make it as simple as possible at the moment with the technology. And there are two ways. First is through remote mapping. So this is something that we always do. We call it mapathon. So we gather people to sit, in one place, and they can remote, particular area through their laptop. and they can see that using satellite imagery and the tasking manager, another hot tools that created for the participatory mapping. But again, the remote mapping thing, it has own limitation, because from satellite imagery there are not many information you can collect, right? So you can only know, oh, this is a building, this is the roads, and this is the river, but you cannot really feel like a specific information about the building. So that's why there are the other way is to go to the field and collect those kind of critical information that you can use for your disaster analysis. And in OpenStreetMap mapping, we have couple of Android or smartphone application to do that. Usually we're using ODK Collect and also or Kobo Collect, things like that. But it's more a technical aspect. But this is actually you can contribute by remotely and also by go to the field. This is like a finite example for you to take a look at what actually OSM can really beneficial for you. I know, like maybe in Nepal, like almost like a area has been really well mapped, but even though there are a couple of areas that may be still in the level 0 or level 1. So our aim, like how we can really make all the area, especially the area that we want working on or we want to analysis, to have a really complete, not only in the terms of the location of the object, but also the critical information of the object itself. For example, in the level 1, all the buildings have been mapped, all the roads have been collected. But again, the analysis that you can get from the level 1 is only like how many buildings will be affected. But if you take a look at the level 3, for example, you can not only understand like how many buildings will be affected in the terms of disaster, but you can also tell people like how many schools will be affected, how many hospitals can be used in the context of disaster. So this is a really important to always, completing your map and updating your map. Even in Nepal, for example, there are, many areas already being mapped, but is it still same, the information? Because it's a very dynamic world that we're living on at the moment. So maybe there are a couple of information change. So this is a example like how you can still continuously contribute in OpenStreetMap, even though the area is still already well mapped, for example. And last part, I'm going to share about how this OSM data can really benefit for disaster context. So remember that OpenStreetMap can really fill the gaps in the decision making. So whenever there is a process of decision making, obviously you need the data, right? So OSM can fill that role by providing, or give you an opportunity to collect those kind of data that you need in the process of, for example, disaster risk reduction policy. So OpenStreetMap, firstly, can also play a role as exposure data. And later on, OpenStreetMap can be combined with your own hazard modeling, risk modeling, to create more, deep analysis about, for example, vulnerability and risk assessment. So from those analyses, you can create a couple of scenarios about the future disaster impacts in your area analysis. And last, finally, your process will be becoming a data-driven decision-making. So it's not based on assumption or just like a history, but you go to the field, you collect the data, and you have the data. So your decision is based on the data instead of the assumption. So this is just an example of how, for example, from OpenStreetMap data, you can create like the administrative map for the local community to make them more aware, like how many critical infrastructure in their working area. Maybe they know they have schools, but they don't know how many schools they have in the area. The distribution of those kind of health facility, for example. So this kind of map can really help local community and local government to really identify and really more aware about the capacity of their area in the context of exposure. And the second about the OSM, it's like I said, if you have your own data and you have created your own, information platform, I believe there are our panelists here, like Mr. Pradeep already created BIPET system, the beautiful, disaster monitoring and analysis. So this is also another example, like when you have your good base map, which is one of them could be from OpenStreetMap, and you have your also another risk layer and risk data, it can be overlaid and it can be create more analysis, for example, for risk assessment or facility assessment. So you can also take a look at what kind of critical facility. And yeah, this is, like I said, OSM, it's not only about the mapping the location of the object, but also you can add like what kind of information do you really want to collect to make your analysis better. And it's allow you, for example, in OSM to create whether this building can be used as an evacuation center or not, can be used as a shelter or not, and so on. And this is another open mapping tools that we create using QGIS and INASAFE. So I will give you the example of the product from INASAFE, but also this is one of the way that we can create to create a disaster impact scenario offline through QGIS. And finally, the data that you will collect or you have collected in OpenStreetMap can be discussed later on with the stakeholders, to decide what's better and what's the next plan. For example, in this context of disaster risk reduction planning and early warning system in that area. Yeah, this is another, information technology from OSM data to see the distribution of evacuation center in particular areas, because in OSM they have collected the data and information. So you can just take a look at those information and create this kind of, technology information to support the disaster risk reduction and response. And this is an example from the last, in June, Afghanistan earthquake. So we created this, we create a mapathon. We asking people to map the affected area in Afghanistan, and we take the data back, and we also download the data from USGS. And like I said, overlay them together and analysis in the open source, another open source tool such as QGIS and INASAFE. And you will get this kind of map to, inform people like how many buildings affected because of this event and where are the distribution in the district level, for example. And this is also another example in Bangladesh flood. So yeah, this is just a glimpse of what can really OSM useful in the disaster context. But I do hope that this is a really good information for all of you to think more like, oh, actually with this kind of data, I can create a couple of ideas or initiatives regarding the disaster risk reduction. So I think that's all for my end for today. But if you have a question, please let me know. I do not know from organizer whether we compile all the session first and we ask common question, but thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Harry. So it's all about that you are talking is that this disaster is actually can be addressed through the participations of every one of us. So there need to be a public-private partnership that we love OpenStreet mapping, that we are introduced to this technology, and all the tools that you have shown us has actually inspires our viewers. Being the geomatics engineers, we are already know a little bit about these tools. And as you also mentioned that the local people in the community knows about his locality. So we are open for the question for Mr. Harry. If anyone has the question, then you can always raise your hand. So there is this reaction button in the Zoom section, or you can put the question in the chat section. So I really encourage every one of us to be very interactive. So we do have Harry, Mr. Harry, who is very expert in the field of HOT and OSM. So once again, thank you, Mr. Harry, for your awesome presentation, such an insightful thoughts that you have shared with us. We are very thankful. So we'll be in touch. Probably you can also put your social media handle in the chat section. So our participants that I can see, there are 85 participants that are listening to us, and we are also live stream in the Facebook and also in the YouTube. Hello everyone, once again. So we are marking International Disaster Risk Reduction Day. So this year theme is actually early warning and early action for all. So this is quite very, very motivating to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is Engineer 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and he will be talking about anticipating and acting early warning system, developing risk-informed society through mapping assessments and forecast. Mr. Gautam is geo-hazard researcher, graduate in disaster risk management with a background in civil engineering. Quite interesting. He is a board member at the Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction. He is enrolled in a young scientist program of integrated research on disaster risk and is a former fellow of Kathmandu Metropolitan City Mayor's Research Fellowship 2020-21 program. So let's welcome Engineer 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So floor is yours, Mr. Gautam.
Thank you so much, Sunilji, and the entire geometric engineering community. So first of all, I would like to thank you for providing me this opportunity. I hope I'm audible and clear. So without any delay, I would like to proceed ahead. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all of our team on celebrating this International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. Every October 13, we are celebrating this day. And for this year, 2022, we have the theme as early warning and early action for all. So with this, I would like to quickly summarize on some of the context of Nepal, as we are very much well known about the Nepal's conditions, which is of course exposed to the multiple hazards. The fragile topography and the steep topography, fragile geology are the major regions that is also acting for the different types of disasters in the country. Besides, we also do have so many other events that are very much resulting to such situations. And these are some of the maps that we have generated, and it is from our paper. So it shows the special distribution of landslide events, earthquake epicenters, locations with magnitude of more than 5 decibels. Similarly, we also have the a map for lightning events and flood events. So as a whole, if I would like to summarize it, then as we can see over here, over the period of 51 years, the average deaths per year for the flood event it's around 83 deaths per year, if we take the average of 51 years. And for the landslide, it's around 112, 113. And for the lightning events, it's around 40. And while for the fire events, it's about 39 deaths per year. So this is the data from the Desinventor and DRR portal. So looking this figure, and also not to forget the Gorkha earthquake 2015, which resulted into the death tolls of more than 8,962 people. So having these things in mind, what we can summarize is disasters are very much obvious in case of Nepal. So having known this fact, are we sitting just like this? Okay, disasters we're gonna have the hazards converting into disasters and just sit back and just keep quiet? I don't think so. So I think we can act. So how do we act is the very much preliminary thing. And I think we should be very much oriented on this part. And especially the geomatics engineering community being the host today, I think they have got a very important role, especially in this case, on making the use of data in disaster risk reduction. And also the disasters are not natural. We have been saying it as natural hazards, because if you see the same level of earthquake that if had happened on the other day rather than the Saturday of Gorkha earthquake, or also same amount of earthquake in other advanced countries like Japan, then I don't think you can see such amount of death. So having looking at these circumstances, what we can summarize is disasters are not natural. is the thing that we need to work on the exposure elements and make it resilient so that the losses are very little. So this is the overall DRM cycle where we work on the mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And the major thing what we lack in case of our country and developing countries are the activities that that needs to be addressed during the preparedness phase. So since I have oriented my presentation regarding to the theme of this International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, so summarizing some of the early warning system mechanism that we had in the past. As you can see over there, we used to have such kind of early warning system in the past that is shown in the left. And we are now advancing and making some robust instrumentations for the data-driven analysis and also for the forecast. As you can see, I have also posted a video over here. So this is the image from the website of Department of Hydrology and Meteorology. So we are now, I mean, we can access the forecast information for like 3 days. That means with the help of 72 images, we can check whether we are going to have some kind of precipitation tomorrow or not. So we do have such kind of forecast informations. And also this is another model, WRFDA, as you can see over there. So with the help of this model, we can also like identify, okay, what's the amount of rain that we're going to have in like a couple of days or something like that. So we do have such kind of information, but the major challenge or the major gap, as you can see, is the way the risk is communicated to the society. It's a very big task because we need to have some kind of better information on the household, the amount of risks they possess. So everything needs to be accounted before we go for such any kind of solutions. And as you can see over there, we are also progressing a lot on the early warning system mechanism. DHM is doing some excellent job. There are very much, advancements done in the case of flood early warning system. But then for the other hazards, the things need to be like, things need to be sorted out. So as you can see over there, these are the different stations that are placed by the DHM, and also the amount of rainfall in the different stations can also be accessed from the website of the DHM. So we do have such kind of information. Now it's our the ball is now in our hands. Okay, so how do we link this kind of early warning into the early action exercises? So I will be focusing more onto these activities on this slide. So what actually the anticipatory action is? You guys must have been listening this word anticipatory action so many times, and it's the major importance or the thing that we do in anticipatory action is we act first beforehand of any kind of disasters with the help of any kind of threshold sets or any other pre-hand information. So what anticipatory action does is, as you can see in this figure, so if we proceed on the traditional way, what we do is generally, if there is a disaster, then the response begins, and then the humanitarian aid is provided, and then things start to get back to the normal. So that is what we did in the traditional approaches. But what anticipatory action envisions is, before any kind of disaster, what we do is we use such kind of forecast information to predict, okay, we are going to have this kind of disaster in certain amount of time. So we are provided with some kind of lead time. So that gives us enough time for, to react accordingly. So if we have like, okay, if whenever the rain crosses 140 millimeter, then it's going to have a landslide or something like that. If you have that kind of threshold data, then I think we can act pre-hand, or we can evacuate people from there. That will result in the, reduction in the losses of lives and properties. So I have summarized this anticipatory action under these three sections. So the first and the most important part is the risk assessment and visualization. And I think the geomatic engineering community has a lot of things to do on this part. So what are the things that actually we as a technical person can support to our community? So I would like to now focus on this part. First of all, regarding the risk assessment and visualization, the approaches which we follow in our institution is we believe in acquisition of high resolution data, and also followed by the household level survey and field assessments. Also, we do some kind of inventory assessments of the flood, landslide, or any other kind of hazards, and then followed by the vulnerability assessment. So I would like to briefly show some of the images from our project. So this is the high resolution images of the 𝗵𝘚𝗀𝗏 municipality, as you can see over there. So the images shown is the output from the UAV, and the polygons which you can see over there are the houses, and we have digitized all those houses. So based on the different types of information gathered from the household survey, we get the GPS from the houses, we got the social, economic, environment, and other different dimensions of the household information. What we do is we give the color code combinations. I would like to show you in the upcoming slide. And besides, alongside these assessments, what we do is we do some kind of systematic modeling to delineate where actually the hazard can have effects. So for that, we do some kind of hazard mapping and so on. And for the household vulnerability assessment, there are different types of approaches, but for the community level assessment, but for the household level assessment, as you can see, there are no any, things are yet to be standardized. We do have informed risk index that can be downscaled to the household level. Alongside, in our institution, we have developed a methodology that combines physical, social, economic, and environmental dimensions of the vulnerability to give the vulnerability score. So based on the score received by each houses on different dimensions, we categorize the houses into green, blue, or red categories. The red ones are the ones which are very highly vulnerable. So such kind of visualizations can be done. And since we have the informations of the household and the risk assessment, now what we do is we integrate the weather forecast data into that system. So that will help us in some kind of decision support system. So that is the main idea regarding the anticipatory action, how we define or how we do risk assessments. So I would like to also like how frontier technologies, as you can see over there, I have put one example from the 𝗿𝗚𝘁𝗲𝗍 debris flow that happened in 2021. So this is the image before the 𝗿𝗚𝘁𝗲𝗍 debris flow, and then this is the image after the debris flow. So we can see lots of changes in the exposure elements. So with the help of different types of technologies, we can assess the amount of risks that, the assess of losses and damage. So also I would like to now focus on to some of our best practices that we have done in our organization. So we have developed a community-based landslide early warning system based on the anticipatory action framework. So what it does is it does the landslide susceptibility assessment, as you can see on the right. And with the help of integration of forecast information into this landslide susceptibility map, what we do is we provide different types of categories. Okay, this house is vulnerable. It is prone to the landslide, or this is not susceptible to landslide. So this kind of information is done through these applications. Besides, we are also partnering with different other stakeholders on developing the inventories for the landslide and so on. So we have developed a tool called 𝗿𝗚𝘁𝗀𝗏 that is capable of collecting the spatial informations. So what we do is for the landslide susceptibility map, we combine different types of map. As you can see over there, there are different factors that contribute to the landslide. So after combining all these factors, we get this kind of map. And then the forecast information is integrated into this map. And regarding the threshold information, so this is the beauty of anticipatory action. So with the help of anticipatory action approach, you will get to know that, okay, we are going to have landslides wherever this amount of rainfall is there. So what we do is we record the data from the stations under the different categories and different information from the historical data. We create different types of curves, as you can see over here. So by using this type of curve, we can set, okay, whenever the level reaches to this value, then there is a landslide, or if it's below the value, then there is no landslide. So in that way, we can set up different types of trigger points so that we can be well aware of the upcoming disaster. And we have also simulated such kind of exercise to the local community, because just developing the system is not a solution. What you have to do is you have to disseminate the solutions, and you have to have the end users using all those advanced options that you have created. So this is one of the example, and another example which we are currently working is on the anticipatory tool for the heat and cold wave. So for this, as you can see over here, we have used different types of forecast data that's from the DHM and also other open sources. So with the help of those data, what we can do is, you can see on the bottom part, we can use this slider to check, okay, on the October 14th, 12 p.m., the amount of, the temperature will be around this in this area. So in that way, what we can do is we can forecast or predict whether there is likelihood of heat wave or cold wave. And for the assessment of the such threshold, what we have done is we use the data from the stations, and then we carry out different types of analysis, as you can see over here. We also use different climatology. We also conduct different types of analysis that includes the minimum temperature, maximum temperature for cold wave and heat wave respectively. And based on the percentile of the value that we receive, we define the threshold. So in this, in this way, we are developing some tools for our, applications of this kind of tools for the disaster. Pre-hand of any kind of disaster. So this is how we have to react, or this is how we have to act in case of anticipatory actions. And I think the engineering community, especially the geometric engineering community, has a lot of roles on this. And I would like to request all of us to let's start working together. And we are open for collaborations, and let's celebrate this theme, not just celebrate this theme, but also implement this theme to make our cities risk informed, and also the way to our resilience. So thank you so much.
Wow, so much detailed presentation it was. So from the early warning system to the frontier technology, and thank you Suraj Gautam once again for mentioning that geomatics professionals are the one who are needed in all the three phases of disaster, for before disaster, for mapping open spaces, vulnerable households, and also during the disaster for quick rapid assessment for informed rescue and management. And for the after disaster session also, we can do the detailed mapping and assessment for building back better. So yes, Mr. Suraj, we are really open for the collaboration, and we'll be always looking forward for it. Thank you for your great presentation. And I can see in the chat section that we have some of the questions. That was okay. I can see. What about earthquake early warning system? So can you please highlight on this, Mr. Suraj Gautam? What about earthquake early warning system? Probably Gary want to know, have you worked in earthquake early warning system? Is there any progress that you have made so far?
Thank you for the wonderful question, Gary. So indeed, it is very much essential, because working on silos or working on a single hazard is not a solution, because as we can see, there are so many cascading effects of hazards, and having well known about the different complexity any kind of hazard can impose on another one. So it is very much essential that we take into account the different types of, the combination or the different cascading of different, number of hazards. So it is very much essential that we now start to focus on the multi-hazard early warning system. But then what we also need is we need pre-hand information of the different hazards. And the biggest challenge what we have in Nepal is the lack of availability of data. For setting any kind of thresholds or making any, setting trigger points, you need some kind of historical data and some evidences that can help you to set up such kind of threshold. So it is indeed very much essential to have a good amount of data, and the importance of data has a lot to do with it. And regarding the earthquake early warning system, there were some projects in the past done by the NAST and other different organizations, but then it is still very limited, and things are yet to be we need to join our hands together to work on this hazard, because it has got a numerous impact, as we can simply recite on the damages and losses caused by the Ghosh earthquake during 2015. So it is of utmost necessity to work on the different hazards, and I think different stakeholders should come together on this line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suraj. Hope, Gary, you got your answer. And also, Mr. Suraj will be leaving his social media handle and email address, so you can directly contact him. So I can also see that there is another questions here from Nigeria. It's from Igunoyari. Sir, excuse me for my pronunciation. So Mr. Suraj will be replying to this question from the chat section is we'll be running out of the time. So excuse us everyone. So we have limited time. Mr. Suraj will be replying to your question in the chat section. So we'll be moving forward. So introducing our next presentation. Presentation is from Mr. 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who is Executive Director of Youth Innovation Lab. And he is one of the interesting guy that I have gone through his profile. And there are so many things to learn from him. Like he is also the host for the program, the second generation with 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. That's interesting. And he has also worked in the development. Actually, he has led the technical aspect for the integrated disaster information management system development in Nepal. And there are many more affiliation that is associated with 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So he will be presenting on use of frontier technologies in disaster risk reduction in Nepal. So over to you, Mr. 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Okay. So thank you. Such a great introduction. So you reminded me back 10 years when I used to host a television program. So I didn't have much long association, but you helped me to think back. So thank you for that. Today, like I'm representing Youth Innovation Lab. So thank you for the great presentation from Suraj and Harry. I think my presentation will be around as well. So I'll be linking all these two approaches and also excited with the presentation from 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and the panel as well. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. I've been a very big fan of this society, and we have been getting a lot of support for a long time, not just institutional but also individual. So I'll be talking about how we are using or trying to use frontier technologies in the sector of disaster risk reduction in Nepal. So let me start with a short introduction of Youth Innovation Lab. So Youth Innovation Lab is a not-for-profit civic tech company. We work in the intersection of emerging cutting-edge technological tools and its application by equipping young people, young youth and young professionals to solve emerging challenges of our communities. And disaster risk reduction and climate change is our key targets, but also we work in different sectors as well. So our mission is to breathe science to people and policy through innovation. I'll talk about the approaches later. What we harness is we believe in indigenous knowledge, citizen science approaches that Harry mentioned. We love developing low-cost technological tools, trying certain things in DRRM and all other sectors as well. We definitely promote open data. That's our one of the core thing. We also work in entrepreneurship. We believe in livelihood development along with our work in disaster risk reduction and climate change. And also we conduct evidence-based advocacy campaigns in different sectors. So our technical and implementation of process is, we believe like we are homegrown and we believe in peer learning and then we believe in the local action as well. And what we advocate and what we appreciate is the disaster data partnership and sharing. So what Surajji was mentioning, what Harry was mentioning, it's all about partnership of data sets because if we look in the past, there has been a lot of instances where like data were not shared, or if shared also like they were not in that condition that we can use for certain output oriented work. And also what we believe is to have an integrated disaster information management system that works for everybody, every local palikas, every provinces, because let's just imagine, having 753 applications led by local organizations or provinces. So it'll be another disaster to maintain like technical approaches. So that's why the Ministry of Home Affairs, National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Authority is advocating for this integrated disaster information management system called 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 as well. And what we also believe is low cost and open source technology as well, because these are some of the best available approaches that is being used worldwide. And also, we believe in being a youth-led organization. We believe in youth-driven approach, and also Suraj mentioned about some of the challenges of risk communication, and we definitely would like to explore possibilities where we can simplify these disaster messages and reach out to the local communities. We strongly work in the legal foundation within Nepal, and also the mandates from global institutions as well. So let me start with a quick introduction of 𝗵𝘁𝘁𝗶𝗿 portal. So 𝗵𝘁𝘁𝘁 portal is a government-owned, government-developed system. So that brings all sort of data sets together in one platform. And this is the first, probably the first government-led institution, the government-led initiative, probably, maybe I can claim this, where you can find every sort of data sets in different formats in one database, like one data sets. And you don't have to log in for the access of all these data sets. You can download all these data sets. There are certain parameters given how you can use these data sets. The owner is given credits that may be the government or other source of data sets, and it's taken as a one-stop platform where you can find all sort of data sets together. And this is the beauty of this is being hosted by the government server, and this is being led by the government, and also localized in some of the palikas as well. So let me give you another example how local governments are using these data sets. Probably you saw the drone imagery shared by Suraj. There has been other like researches after 𝗿𝘁𝘁𝗶𝗿 flood last year, and if you see like these data sets, how beautifully they have captured and actually worked after these landslide and flood last year. So you can see all these data sets available in the local municipal platform. So I think all these data sets can be hosted in one platform. This is the example how we want to showcase how local data sets can be harnessed in one platform and can be used for collective action. So you can find a lot of data sets. So if I start sharing about these data sets, probably it'll take more time. But then you can find like all sort of data sets, like the data sets that was impacted, building footprint data sets, and so on. So this is the beauty of this. So these were the completely destroyed households, and also you can figure out the ways and also the bridges and other critical infrastructures damaged in that region as well. And also there are suitability mapping. So these data sets was developed in the leadership of 𝗿𝘁𝘁𝗶𝗿 municipality, and with the consultation of some of the contractual agreements they have done. But these data sets were provided by the municipality and also endorsed by the professionals that were engaged in this project. So we have heard about this initiative of mapping earthquake data sets in Kathmandu Valley. So this is one of the JICA's seismic hazard map of Kathmandu Valley, showing the peak ground acceleration. But there are lots of tons of data sets that are available in this platform as well, from the earthquake assessment, risk assessment of Kathmandu Valley. So so that is also one of the beauty, because these data sets were not actually like published or made available in this platform. So they were on the hard disks or some other platform, but now these are integrated in this platform. So today is a very special day, early action for all. I was checking the chat earlier that Basundai was sharing like some of the initiatives in early actions, but also the challenges as well. So while sharing this impact-based forecasting module, which is being developed as a prototype and also being implemented in 3 different stations in the Western region. So we have seen like some of the challenges while monitoring this platform last year and this year. So when our DHM's forecast is not ready, so depending on the GLOFASS, we have been facing a lot of challenges in identifying, the actual need of this implementation. So probably in days to come, we'll be able to explore this possibility. And when we have the dynamic system integrated from the DHM, probably we can explore more. But there are lots of challenges, like initiating the anticipatory action, especially in a national level. But definitely there are local interventions, local good practices probably that can also be interlinked in future as well. But this is one of the example, and that this shows the household level information also overlaid with flood inundation layers, and it has rich scoring based on the set of indicators and also the real-time quantification of potential flood impact level at the household levels. So this is one of our approaches of visualizing risks or making these data sets simple to understand by the local levels. So this was piloted in local government and also showcased in some of the global platforms like GPDRR and APMC DRR. So one of the approaches that we understand working with 50 plus local municipal authorities was difficulty in understanding all these technicality of developing this platform. So we wanted to make this initiative, though we started from this English language. So we wanted to simplify this process through storytelling approaches, through infographics, and through a software, something like a PPT showcase or something like that. So that's how we started, and there are lots of creative features interlinked on this, and we have been taking a lot of feedbacks, and we definitely seek feedback from you guys as well. So this also collects household level data sets, and we have been piloting from some of the municipalities in different formats. So we started from flood exposure, landslide exposure, multi-hazard scenario as well. And this is one of the examples of, like the data sets being used from Durham University's assessment in landslide assessment in 14 earthquake affected zones. This is of probably 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏 municipality. So what this particular graph is showing, the trends of growing the number of landslide after 2015 earthquake. So probably you can see, like the number of landslide being increased in those regions. So after 2020, because of COVID and other reasons, like the data set has not been integrated, but hopefully somewhere soon we can see the trend of 2020 landslide information as well. So these data sets, when we tested to the local ground with the local officials, so we have seen, like the kind of reactions they have. So I think this could be one of the approaches how we can communicate risks to the local community. And another approach we have taken is how we link the power of youth and innovation, linking with the local authorities who are actually in need of getting this kind of technological approach, and who are the big teams as well. So what we have started is developing this fellowship program called Disaster Reduction Young Leaders Fellowship, and also the Climate Fellowship we have recently started. So through this program, we have already worked with 50 plus municipalities where a technological, technical friendly, let's say, person like Vinita is one of the example. She was part of the fellowship program as well. Similarly, other people like from geometric engineering, civil engineering, IT, and environment science. And mostly, I'm so proud to share among you that mostly the geometric engineers are so much interested in this platform, and we also recommend them to be part of it, because Bipad portal itself is developed as a GIS tool, and they understand this very well. So they are stationed at the municipality for 6 months. They work very closely with the disaster risk reduction officer, and they transfer capacity, like one showed the example of Pokhara municipality, where one of our fellow is explaining the modules to the officers as well. So what they do is they give online on-the-job training. So they capacitate the DRR focal person and other IT person and other people at the municipality. They also digitize the data sets, including critical infrastructure data sets as well. And like Harry mentioned, they also map or contribute through 𝗏𝑜sm to map OpenStreetMap informations of those particular municipalities as well. So through this initiative, we have seen, like local municipal official understanding all these data sets and having that simplification in understanding these complex data sets and disaster risk reduction related things. And we have seen some of the good examples, like municipalities developing their local plan and policies based on these data sets, annual plan and policies, daily bulletin, and also the bulletin from disaster impacted areas, and also their yearly reports as well. So this is the start, and I hope this can lead towards many more opportunities in future. I'm very hopeful to this community because we have worked so much already with so much of interested group on OpenStreetMap mapping, disaster risk reduction fellowship program, and I hope to continue this in future as well. So thank you for this opportunity, and I'm sharing this back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏. There is so much to take from your presentation, like you mentioned about the civic engagement, entrepreneurship, low-cost products, database, and geo-visualization, that you also mentioned that 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is itself a GIS-based tools. And we are really proud of 𝗂𝗏𝘁𝗏𝗏𝗏, our treasurer at NGES also. And also there are many more friends like 𝗂𝗏𝘁𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏, who is currently working at Youth Innovation Lab. And also there are other friends too. So thank you for creating this great opportunity for the youth and engaging ourselves, engaging the youth for disaster management and preparedness, rescue, and many more. So I can see there are many much things going on in the chat section. There are lots of question and answers, and also there is a quick question from 𝗵𝗶𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗏 that I want to put forward. Have 𝗵𝗏𝗏 platform been able to capture the elements of protection cluster?
Yeah, I quickly answered that. Not yet. So I think it's a possibility to work further. I think we can start that. That's a good point.
Thank you, Mr. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So yes, you can always put your question if you have missed asking the question in person or in the chat section now. Mr. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 will be very happy to answer them in the chat section, and also he will be putting his social media handle and also maybe the email. So yes, you can directly approach him. So I can see there are lots of good things going in the chat section, and also our participants have reached to 100, and it's 95 plus minus 5. So you can always, if you are not able to participate directly through the Zoom link, then you can reach out to us and probably can join us in the Facebook link, Facebook page. We have shared this live. We are streaming live in the Facebook. Probably my volunteer friends and also someone from the NGES will be very happy to help you. There I can see 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏𝗏𝗏 has put the link for YouTube. So you can always go through the link and you can join us there and also put the question over there also. So moving forward, our next presenter and our last presenter actually. So let me introduce to you to Ms. Srishti Guru. She is Information and Data Preparedness Lead, Emergency Preparedness and Response Project 2nd, World Food Program. So she is the Information and Data Preparedness Lead for Emergency Preparedness at the United Nations WFP in Nepal Country Office. Academically, a global supply chain graduate with more than 6 years of experience in the field of a disaster. And her presentation title is on Remote Trail and a Community Infrastructure Mapping for Emergency Preparedness. So as you can see, that there are still some of the rural areas in Nepal that need to be connected, and probably Ms. Gurung will be guiding us and will be motivating through her talk about how to connect these remote areas and how we can actually lead the disaster risk reduction programs over there. Over to you, Ms. Gurung.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yeah, perfectly.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. And hello, everyone, again. This is 𝗂𝗏𝘁𝗲𝗏, and I'm currently working with UNWFP Nepal for the Emergency Preparedness and Response Project as Information and Data Preparedness Lead. So for today, I will be presenting about the remote trail and community infrastructure mapping, which is one of the activity that we are doing. We did for the preparedness project. So prior to jumping to my presentation, I would like to give a brief history about how the project got started. So during the 2015 earthquake, what happened was, like, right after the earthquake struck, many people started flying down in the country, and so were the relief materials. So, you know, like, everyone was flooding people and relief materials, but the thing was to get it to the people who were affected, to who were in the remote areas. So that was the problem. So basically, access was the problem. So after that, what we did as WFP, being the logistic cluster lead globally and co-lead in case of Nepal, so what we did was we started a remote access operation, which we call RAO. So if you Google about it, you can have the documents to go through it. So basically, through the ROA operation, what we did was we hired more than 30,000 people from the mountaineering community and the locals and the porters to get it to the affected districts. So basically, the 5 remote areas in 5 districts as listed in the slide, you can see. So it was Gorkha, Sindhupalchok, Dolkha, Dading, and Ratsua. So the project was started from 2015 and ended in December 2016. So during the operation period, we reached 888 kilometers through porters and mules and the local people. So it was not only about delivering the relief items or aids or food, but it was about rehabilitating the access to the remote areas. So that was 888 kilometers. So what happened after the experience was we did a lesson learned workshop post-earthquake and how did the remote access operation was carried out and what could be done for the coming days. You know, like there are days where people talk about what you can do for preparedness, but unless you are in the ground and you experience itself and you realize the need, so that's when it strikes in the mind and people are like, oh yeah, we should be doing that. So remote access operation was one of the activity or one of the operation which triggered us the importance of mapping in case of another mega disaster. So that's how the process started, the idea started. So what we did was we did an in-house study. So we did a gap analysis. So after the objective of the gap analysis was to see what kind of information we have available in the market and who have the information, but there were different criteria to do the analysis. So I've listed out. So it was about the how the frequency of hazards. So we consider different hazards that Nepal is prone to. So we wanted to do an analysis and identify where are the needs and how we could move forward with it. And so you can see these are the indicators and the domain and the indicators, and which resources we use to identify the districts to map. So based on the different criteria that we had for our gap analysis, we identified 11 districts all over the Nepal, which are very vulnerable in terms of disasters and which lacks the information about the data for mapping or trails, and which are very vulnerable. So yeah, the 11 districts are listed out there. So you can see the map as well. And I'm sorry, the older map, because that was done back in 2017. So I just copy and pasted it. So So the area highlighted in the red, which we now know as Karnali and 𝗂𝗏𝘀𝗀𝗆 province. So they are the one. So 11 districts were identified there. So after the identification, what we did was we wanted to do a pilot project. So for the pilot project, we did it in Jumla along with one of the technical partner, Pathway Technologies. So that was a pilot project for us. So because previously we didn't had the experience of doing the mapping. So that was our first experiences. And then through the pilot project, we mapped, you can see we mapped 260 kilometers in Jumla. So that was back in 2018. So after the experience of Jumla, we knew like how we could mobilize people in the field and how we can map and how we can get the information and capacitate the local people as well. So what we did in 2019 was we decided to map 2 districts, which was Jumla and Mugu and Humla. So we decided with a minimum map minimum 500 kilometers. So you can see like the technical partners we had, they ended up mapping 557 kilometers in Mugu and 675 kilometers in Humla. So it was not just mapping the trails, but as Harry mentioned in his presentation, like for the OSM, we can map different features like schools, public places, and open spaces. So we had like the areas or spaces or the factors which are important in terms of emergency or when you wanted to do and respond. So we have like different factors mapped, features mapped. So you can see it in the slides. So that was the 2018 and 17 experience. So with the 2 years of experience, we got more energy and we got more confidence. So that's how we ended up in 2020 with the expanded project. So we ended up having 4 districts in 2020. So that was 2 districts in Karnali and 2 districts in 𝗂𝗏𝘁𝗀𝗆. So the highlighted 4 districts, Pazang, Bazura, Kalikot, and Dolpa. So those were the 4 districts that we did in 2020. So in total, we mapped, you can see it on your right side, so 3,884 kilometers. So I would like to highlight the fact that we know like the mapping is important, but we didn't just like map the information required. We had our partners to utilize the youth. So we trained the local people available in the district. So we capacitated them. So we gave them a 4 days in-house training, how to use GPS devices, or how to record the information, and how they could use different applications to collect the information and map them. So it was not only about mapping, but it was about capacitating the local youths for the sustainability in the longer run. Along with that, we had sensitization workshop where we sensitized more than 237 local stakeholders with the importance of mapping. And followed that, after the completion of the activity, what we did was we went to the districts again and we shared the information with the local stakeholders. So I would like to take this I'd like to emphasize that mapping is important. So what we did with this 3,884 kilometers in 7 districts is just a small step in terms of preparedness. So it's not enough. but it's just a small step to advocate in the disaster, which are in the areas which are prone to disaster, for the people and the local stakeholders to own it and to realize the importance of mapping, so that in coming days they will allocate some resources for incoming days to map maybe all the districts. And touch wood, till date, we don't have the major disaster now, followed 2015 earthquake. So, but should there be any, then we know like we are prepared in terms of data and we can respond timely. So yes, that's it from my side, and I have a few pictures to share.
Sure.
So yeah, so this so mapping. So I will, sorry, I forgot to mention. So mapping, all the data are uploaded in the OSM platform. So we have all the technical, the geomatics engineering people. So I hope you guys can go and see in the OSM platform what we have done till date. And it's not just mapping, but we have map books as well. So we give it to the local stakeholders so they could see it. And from if someone technical people, they do understand what happens in the platform, but for someone like a grandfather or grandmother or just the local people who are not so educated, at least they could see the map and they could know like where are the things, and they could see like why we were there in their area and what we did. So these are the books. This is what in the districts that we went to, we have like each palika wise map book. And so along with going in the field, we had our technical partners do desktop mapping in OSM as well. So that's how we came up with 1 lakh something data points. And this is how they were doing in the field. And, the districts that we chose were like in really remote areas of Nepal. So there they do have the electricity problem. So we as well were ready with the old school ideas where they map in the papers as well, just in case like their devices would not work, so that they can come back and they could charge their phones and they can do the entry, or they still have something in the back to support it. So yeah, these are the pictures of the field, and that's it from my side. And thank you. If someone has any questions, please let me know and I'll be happy to answer. And I do have my colleague 𝗵𝘆𝘁𝗶𝗿 joining. So yeah, shoot us any question if someone has. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gurung. It's very inspiring. So yeah, let's map the whole rural areas in Nepal. Geomatics Engineering Society is with you. So as a geomatics professionals, we always look forward to collaborate. And I can see there are lots of things going in the chat sections. Like there are lots of collaboration talks. As you can see, Ms. Gurung, I am from Assam. So I would love to do the trail mapping of the Assam also. That 11 district, one of them was Assam too. So yeah, I'm open for collaboration, and also my Nepal Geomatics Engineering Society is very much happy to welcome you here and hear from you, get inspired. And yes, if anyone have question for Ms. Gurung, then you can put that in the chat section. So I guess that's all for now. Ms. Gurung, you can put your social handle over the chat section. So I would also like to announce that we have finished our first section of hearing from the various experts in various fields. Okay, I can see Ms. Gurung. So probably someone in the admin section, please unmute. Okay, so yeah, Ms. Gurung, you can talk.
Hi, Synergy. I see like Janak sir mentioned about the using of the correct map. I would like to highlight that, yeah, we do use new bound, but the map that I showed was back from 2017, where it was not actually the new map. So that's what I just copy pasted. So I just like to make it clear that we are not using the older map. We do use the new map. And to your query about mapping Assam, so that's in the list, but we do have some limitation with the resources. But for coming days, if there would be the resources flooding in, so we have the left for districts as priority. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gurung. So as I was saying, you can always put your questions in the chat section. So our speakers will be very happy to respond to each question. And also you can also put your social media handle and talk with, maybe mingle up with people. So it can be a networking opportunity as well. I would also like to ask every one of you, so before moving forward, in our panel discussion session, I would also like to ask every one of you to open your camera so we can have a good screenshots that I can see 96 participants are here who are listening and is very much collaborating and talking, putting their ideas in the chat section also. So yes, please open your camera so we can have the screenshot. As we can see, 95 participants are here. So yeah, wait for a minute. So that's all, I guess. Thank you once again, everyone. Thank you for being so much attentive listener and contributing so much in the chat section as well. So this can be a networking opportunity. So you can put your social media handle or probably LinkedIn handle so you can connect with someone with similar ideas so we can collaborate together for better disaster risk reduction, resilient society. So moving forward to our next session, it's panel discussion. And I probably should highlight that this speaking sessions has mentioned every kind of that data sets and visualization techniques and technology, geospatial technologies that have been used and is now the trend, which is actually changing the way disaster management is done, rescue and detailed assessment is done for building back better resilient society. So our panel discussion topic is on geospatial technologies for science-based policy and practices in disaster risk reduction for Nepal and also beyond. So I would be very happy to welcome Mr. Janakrat Joshi, Dr. 𝗂𝘂𝘁𝗍𝗿 𝗥𝗶𝘀𝗀, and Dr. 𝗂𝘂𝑃𝐻𝑒𝐿𝑎 𝗏𝗂𝐿𝑎. Let me introduce you to our panelists. Our first panelist that I mentioned is Mr. Janakrat Joshi, who is Joint Secretary and spokesperson at the Ministry of Land Management, Cooperatives and Poverty Alleviation. He pursued his Master of Science degree, Geoinformation Science and Earth Observation from University of ITC, the Netherlands in 2008. He entered the public service since 1999. Starting as a survey officer, Mr. Joshi has worked as the director and at Land Management Training Center. His contribution in drafting policies for land governance and management in Nepal has been invaluable. And I'm so lucky to welcome you, Mr. Joshi, sir. As you are also one. Thank you, Mr. Joshi. As you are also one of the key persons that introduced geomatics engineering in Kathmandu University, and I'm also the product of the Kathmandu University. So I am so lucky to welcome you on board.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Janakrat Joshi. So our next panelist is Dr. 𝗂𝘂𝘁𝗍𝗿 𝗥𝗶𝘀𝗀. He is Deputy Director. He is an Assistant Professor at Department of Civil Engineering, Tribhuvan University, Nepal. He has over 15 years of experiences on tectonics of the Himalaya, climate change, multi-hazard, early warning system, and disaster risk reduction. He has conducted more than 40 research projects funded by DFID, UNDP, FAO, NFC, Global Challenges Research Fund, UKRI, etc. Moreover, he has been contributing in the policy documents for the DRR in planning and implementation at both national and international level. He has received various recognition for his work in the field of earth science, that is Young Affiliates, the World Academy of Sciences, Sichuan 1000 Talents. His detailed information can be found in his bio, web page, and also all panelists will be putting their personal social media handle and also the LinkedIn in the chat section, so you can follow them in those social handles. So welcome, Mr.
Namaste.
Actually, Dr. Adhikari. I want to welcome you on board. So moving towards our next panelist, Dr. 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Climate change expert with experience from tactical to the strategic level. His experiences ranges from disaster risk reduction to preparedness, especially in the capacity building and awareness generation, response and reconstruction as well. He is also passionate researcher, columnist, and analyst. He loves to share his experiences in order to build disaster-resilient societies in the country. Welcome, Dr. Molla.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So, thank you, everyone who are hearing us live today in this Zoom section. And also, you can hear us in the Facebook streaming and also the YouTube. Probably one of the volunteers will be putting the links in the chat section. So you can always, you can put your questions. So this this session will be more interactive. So I would probably be very flexible with the languages, as we can see that we will be talking more about the policies in Nepal. And so we'll be talking in English as well as in Nepali also. So there are certain international participants. So probably we'll be talking more in English, and also we'll be trying to put subtitles in the future. So we'll be providing the YouTube link for your reference in the chat section for your reference. So let's start this panel discussion. I can see there are lots of people as a panelist here for developing the policies. So let me start from Dr. Molla. So I have read your article in the Kathmandu Post. So you have stressed that there is the need for science-based policy and practices in disaster risk reduction. Why do you think it is an absolute necessity?
Thank you, Sunil, sir. And I think I'm audible there. And yeah. Thanks very much for the former presenters, Suraj sir, Harry, Pradeep, and Srishti. And I think their presentation have already elaborated these issues. Like I didn't have to speak much about this. And we know that like this disaster risk reduction, like disaster response is science-based. This is science-based, what you call that? It is an event, or like this is endeavor. So like this is more technical, like this is more technical, and it all like revolves around this data, informations, like preparedness, and then these all things. So these all things revolves around this research. And what we should not forget is, I call this disaster an enemy. It's a kind of war, where always the enemy is one step ahead of us. Like, okay, what could be the next threat, like that we have to research more on it so that we can battle it effectively. So I call it that. Like we can see the examples, what happened last year in 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, like we see like that type of devastating flood had never occurred in Nepal earlier. What happened in this Manang last year, and what happened in Europe, and what is happening right now. You see, these all challenges, they are always ahead of us. And then there's this effect of this climate change that is again aggravating the threats. So to counter all those threats, we have to think it scientifically. We have to do research and all, and we have to make such conducive policies so that they can deal them appropriately. So for that need as well, we need science-based policy. But what is unfortunate is less than 1% of this research is being conducted in these least developed countries. If you see the research and if you see all those scientific analyses, this says that less than 1% of this science-based research in this DRR field is being carried out in these least developed countries. So we need to push more on it so that like we make appropriate policies, we make appropriate plans along. We have to learn from the others, right? Like we see how these developed nations have, like dealt with these disasters, how they are moving ahead, how they are tackling these challenges, and we have to learn from them. And for that need as well, we need this research and all. So like we need to invest more on it. So this is the drawback. And what we have seen here is at times you may like hear me a little critical, but I have to speak it frankly and candidly that here in Nepal, we have the less practice of this science-based policy developing process, So we have to focus more on it. So this is the need of the time. This is the need of the time. And definitely the threats are much more larger, much more, what you call that, grave in the days to come. So to counter all those threats, we have to be based on science and research. And as like I reiterate again, these disaster things, we talk about early warnings, right? We talk about informations, we talk about the system and technologies that has to be brought in or like that has to be devised from the research and all. So that's why I stress that this has to be the science-based policy endeavor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Malla. So as you also keep on writing that these policies and all the actions need to be they need to be achievable. And so while we're talking about the science of surveying and mapping, so we do have Mr. Joshi here. So as we can see, geospatial technologies is more about the surveying and mapping. So how this industry and how the geomatics engineers are actually helping to formulate these policies and practices in a more scientific way for better, resilient, disaster risk reduced societies. Mr. Joshi?
Thank you, Sunil. So thank you very much for inviting me in this very advanced, discussions on application of geoinformation technology for science-based policy formulations. Actually, I agree with Dr. Malla, 𝗚𝘁𝗏𝗏𝗏 Malla. Just he said that we need to have the science-based policy. And I have some points before elaborating my points. First one is every policy based on the evidences, and that we are lacking right now. So where do these evidences come from? We need to mind it. Number one. Number two, I read somewhere, I think somewhere on ESRI documents, they argue that 80% of the informations are the spatial informations. They related to the spatial positions. And those out of the informations, those information that depends upon the location, those comes from the geoinformation technologies after application of geoinformation technology. So before devising any policies or any plans and getting it implemented on the real field, we need to have proper technology to use and proper information to acquire. And on the basis of these, if we formulate our policy, those can be really implementable and we can achieve our goal. So where regarding the अहिले हामी कुरा गरिरहेका छौं disaster risk reduction and application of geoinformation technology. So in every phases, every stages of disaster that we talk about, pre-disaster and post-disaster, we need geoinformation technology. So if we talk about the pre-disaster phases for, let's say mitigations or the preparedness, we need the information and we need appropriate technology to get those information. And if we also talk about the post-disaster events, like responses or rehabilitations or then other these steps, then also we need these appropriate technology to get information, to visualize these what we call the hazards or exposure to hazards or the analysis of risk or identification of risk. All these things, if we apply the appropriate technology and appropriate get information, then we can have the better results to apply. So in first sight or first your questions, my initial opening or the remarks is that for geoinformation persons or the engineers or policymakers, we need to have proper technology, we need to have proper information in place before sitting and drafting any plan and policy.
Thank you, Jana sir. Jana सरले जुन हिसाबले उठान गर्नुभएको छ, जुन हिसाबको चाहिँ technological gap, there is kind of a technological gap and there is kind of a data set lagging in the society, and there is actually need of these technologies that need to be handed to the technical person, the manpower. With such kind of a manpowers and with such kind of a technology, these data sets can be prepared. And to talk about these technologies and to talk about these manpowers and the resources, that is very, very necessary. That is actually feeding the spatial data for better disaster risk reduction, informed decision making. So what do you think, Dr. Adhikari, are the recent developments and trends in geospatial technologies that can help us better address the disaster? And the second tail question that comes with this is, do we have enough skilled manpowers and policies for sailing in the tide? So, Dr. Adhikari?
Thank you. Thank you, Sunilji. Am I audible?
Yeah, perfectly.
Namaste, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me for this with my esteemed panelist. Of course, the development of geospatial technology advances over the years when we started our Landsat era, and then using different satellite images nowadays to understand how the spatial information can be acquired and gathered and analyzed with the different geographic information system environment. So these kind of things are being practiced for many decades, but the use of these technology or this information is very, very crucial and vital. So now when we are talking about this geospatial technology, we can take example, for example, let's say COVID-19. So, I was in China and then I was using my mobile app and I was able to see, the information on geospatial and then the linkage with the nodes and links where we could really see that where are the COVID patients, where we can go or not. So this is the location-based information that we are using now. This is the advancement now, in DRR, I would say that. And then another one is that, geospatial artificial intelligence that we are practicing in our daily life. I mean, maybe we don't realize it, but we are using, when we are using the cell phone or smartphone, that's where we are using this geospatial artificial intelligence system. Not only that, for example, when you talk about virtual reality and augmented reality, then it comes the next level of geospatial technology for using this data. So when we use, for example, LiDAR or UAV or different other kind of technology that advancing over the years, that is really capturing the essence and the need of the disaster risk management. When you talk about the post-disaster or the during the disaster, so this geospatial technology, for example, when we have a disaster, then disaster charter activates, and we can request to the different UN agencies and other satellite providers that we can use or acquire these, real-time information, not real-time, near to real-time information, where you can access directly, and then we can respond. So this is the gist or the summary of the advancement. But the major question or the important thing is that, do we have access? Do we have adequate human resources for that? And this is the very vital question in the context of Nepal, as we are in the developing stage. So, for example, when Kathmandu University started this geomatics engineering, and Tribhuvan University has started geomatics engineering in Pokhara, and then now we are talking about geomatics engineering. But in the past, Janak sir is here, so Department of Survey is practicing this kind of information or system for a long time. But to use the latest technology or the information on geospatial, I think still a long way to go. For example, when we saw this past presentation on OSM or UAV images or different kind of technologies, I mean, these are advancing, and very few people, they understand these things. So that's why it's a long way to go, but we are in good stage to proceed. Thank you. Over to you, Sunilji.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. So, as you mentioned, that our past presenters are really using this advanced technology, and this has wowed me. And we can see there are comments coming from Nigeria, and also from the Gary, and also Harry, and also many much collaboration is now opened. As we can see, as you also mentioned that we are moving from these traditional technologies and also the satellite imagery, the first one like Landsat, and then there is now we need to open up for unmanned aerial vehicle, drone technology. So, यस्तो टेक्नोलोजीहरू जस्तै ड्रोन टेक्नोलोजी र जुन हिसाबको भर्चुअल रियालिटी र अगमेन्टेड रियालिटी जुन चाहिँ एम्बेडेड गर्न सकिन्छ, जसरी मोडलिङ गर्न सकिन्छ, र डिजास्टरलाई जुन हिसाबले चाहिँ डाटा सेटहरू प्रोभाइड गरेर चाहिँ डिजास्टरहरूलाई चाहिँ हामीले जुन हिसाबको प्रिडिक्ट गर्न सक्छौं, and then we can also prevent the disaster itself. So this is how geospatial technologies is making the science-based platform and policies. And there is this requirement for policy level to act and to open up for new technologies to actually flourish. So, Mr. Joshi, so what do you think that can be the key things that is actually very, very necessary to put all the stakeholders that are working for the disaster and also putting this geomatics professional in the front seat so that the community can actually get benefited? So how this policy can be written and how this can be implemented? What do you think on this, Mr. Joshi?
Thank you. In my first statement, I talk about the evidence-based policies that should be based on the geoinformations, actually, which are the 80% out of all informations. Now, coming to your next point, that we need technology and how we can make it working. And most of the communities working on the disaster risk reduction can get together to fight against the losses that we are facing in recent days. So the first thing that we need to do here is create awareness among policymakers. The second is willingness to invest much in these sectors. Because if we see now, and if we just evaluate our past, our practices and our efforts that we have been doing in the past, what we currently think about the disaster risk reduction or disaster risk management is to cope after disaster situation, basically. कम्बल लिएर फिल्डमा जाने अथवा यो जुन रेस्क्यू अपरेसन फिल्डमा सञ्चालन गर्ने मात्रै हो कि भन्ने किसिमको हाम्रो फिलिङ र हाम्रो पोलिसी मेकरको एउटा जुन सोच छ, I think we need to think it better. So if we work on the preparedness most of the times, then we need to less the impact of the disasters, and the disaster risk can be minimized in great extent. So our policymakers should be first, they should realize that most of the investment should be done on the pre-disaster situation. That is how we can identify the disaster situations. Which events are hazardous? What are the risks related to those? So for this, we need to, look into the past. सुरुमा जोन स्नोले 1854 मा जति बेला त्यो कोलेराको म्याप बनाउनु भएको थियो, सरले अघि पनि यो एडभान्समेन्टको कुरो गरिसक्नु भएको छ. Now we are very much moved ahead of them. Now we can simulate the disasters. We can identify the situation. We can simulate, not only we can see, but we can feel through the virtual reality and augmented realities how the disaster is going to happen and what would be its impact at large. These situations can be, sequence can be mapped, and these can be simulated, these can be modeled. So in advance, now we are in position to know what would be the effect and impact, what would be the loss of lives and peoples and properties by these kind of vulnerable disaster risk. So what we need to do is to identify the risk, to assess the risk, and to predict what is going to happen in the future because of these disasters. That is why, so all the communities who are working in this field, they should get acquainted with the situation. They should know, they should realize the technology. They should be convinced that we need to come together and fight together to cope with DRR and its impact.
Thank you, Joshi sir. So जुन हिसाबको अवेरनेसहरू चाहिएको छ अहिले अब पोलिसी मेकर्सलाई, अनि पब्लिक प्राइभेट पार्टनरशिपको आवश्यकता पनि महसुस भएको छ. सो यसैमा यो बाहेक जुन हिसाबको चाहिँ अहिले अब टेक्नोलोजिकल एडभान्समेन्ट हुँदैछ. सो देयर इज दिस जियो पोर्टल that we hold, and that has critical information on geospatial databases and land use and land cover. Also, there are very much necessary data sets that is actually required for making this disaster risk reduction model that can be predicted very well on the basis of this data set. कस्तो खालको डाटा सेटहरु चाहिँ जियो पोर्टल या त भनौं अब हाम्रो जुन हिसाबको मिनिस्ट्री छ, जुन हिसाबको हाम्रो ल्यान्ड म्यानेजमेन्ट र सर्वे डिपार्टमेन्ट छ, यसबाट चाहिँ कस्तो खालको डाटा सेटहरु चाहिँ हाम्रो डिजास्टर रिस्क रिडक्सन प्रोफेसनलहरुले पाउन सक्छन्, जसबाट चाहिँ फर्दर मोडलिङहरु गर्न सकियोस्.
थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच. आई थिङ्क यसको बारेमा मैले थोरै उसमा शब्दमा राख्ने प्रयास गर्छु. आई थिङ्क सर्वे डिपार्टमेन्ट हेज क्वाइट सफिसिएन्ट डेटा टु मोडल द डिजास्टर्स. The information that the survey department owns now can be used for the modeling of prediction and identifications of the disaster risk situations. They have the now in पश्चिम तराईको करीब 20,000 वर्ग किलोमिटरको from Mahakali River to Narayani River, the southern part of the Nepal Tarai regions. They have the LiDAR data, which means they have the they can model the height, the digital, very accurate digital elevation model. They have point cloud and also the orthophoto, very accurate orthophoto, they already acquire. Besides that, they already have different kinds of geospatial information like very old-fashioned contour and topographic maps, as well as other high-resolution satellite images, and also the land use maps and databases. So in this land use data, they already modeled some kind of risk data. They identified the positions and locations which are under risk. And they also categorize the risk in high, medium, and low risk areas so that we can avoid those risky locations when we will be planning any human interactions with those locations. So we have a couple of data sets which can be available free of charge, which can be bought from, which can you can buy by paying some. I don't have actual these information about the pricing, but you can buy those data from there as well. So I think most of the data that we have at the survey department can be very useful and applicable for disaster modelings in pre-disaster phase, and those data can also be used for planning after that, relocations, rehabilitations, or for these settlement, relocate the settlement. So these kind of every data, whatever you need, they can be obtained from survey department. But at the same time, what we need is to update in the regular basis those data. One thing is that, and the other things that we need is to acquire the real time, or let's say near real time data to model the real situation and what is currently happening on the field. So if we can manage such real time or near real time data, that would be more important for the futures.
Thank you, Joshi sir. So, question say, Dr. Molla, question to you. So, as you are actually going to the local units and building the capacity of these local people and local community for disaster risk reduction, so do you find these data sets, the geospatial technology, can be graspable by these people? उहाँहरूले म्यापिङ र सर्वे कतिको बुझ्नुहुन्छ र जुन हिसाबको डाटा सेटहरू हामीसँग अवेलेबल छ उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ त्यो हिसाबले डेलिभर गर्नको लागि, उहाँहरूलाई सिकाउनको लागि कस्तो कस्तो च्यालेन्जेसहरू छ र कस्तो कस्तो डाटा सेटहरू चाहिँ पुगेको छैन जुन चाहिँ जियोम्याटिक्स कम्युनिटीले चाहिँ आफ्नो योगदान दिन सकोस्? डाक्टर मल्ल.
Thank you, Sunil sir. Thank you for the question, and this is really a very pertinent question. And I think Pradeep sir in his early presentation has already addressed this issue a little bit. And besides, I'll speak on more on this. And at first, like, we should not be more aspiring about this disaster risk reduction and then response, this venture, since it is in the grassroots level in Nepal. This has been just a few years that we have stepped into this scientific research, this modern technologies, and this response related DRR, this venture. And within this period, we have done so much of achievements, right? Like we have established this 𝗵𝘁 portal and all. We have established these data sets and these hybrid maps and everything. But still, we need to work on more on this, because if we see at local level, there is very much of this lack of understanding, even among the communities. And as I say that this has to be strengthened in the governance level as well. Like, there are a few challenges which I first, like, before going to talk on the public aspect, we should first visualize ourselves from this disaster governance aspect. I see a few challenges. We have to address them first, right? First one is like, as Joshi sir and Basanta sir said earlier, this disaster risk reduction and response venture, it has been viewed as from the very this narrow point, like there is an understanding at local level, even at national and provincial level, that this DRR is just a responsibility of a specific ministry, specific department and all. We have to change that mentality first. And we have to make this disaster risk reduction a separate career path. Till now, it has remained as an ad hoc part. And then only we can, after strengthening our own capability, then after, we can think of strengthening the capability of these local communities, their understanding, and then how to, we have to think on more about this, using these data maps, these data sets, and these modern maps at their level. Till now, we see we have developed some kind of modern, these technologies, these data and mappings, but they are not understandable at their level. Even this is not understanding at our level as well, So we have to work on it, and we have to work on this from this down to top level, so that we have to research on them, what kind of data set they require, what is their level of understanding, what is their education level, what sort of this map will be understandable for them, So once we do that research, then only we can come to the top. And okay, so this is the level of understanding. So now we have to go on this. We have to develop this kind of data sets, right? So this is what we need to strengthen in the days to come. And coming back to our earlier discussions, as I said, these policies need to be science-based. I'll give you one example as you are working on drone. Like the government of Nepal, they have developed this directive for the usage of drone, right? But have they ever thought of using drones at the time of disasters? Because if you see that directive, it says that drones cannot be flown over these heritage sites, these sensitive installations and all, by the close of the borders. But what will happen, if we are not allowed to use them during the time of disasters? If some disaster, let's recall the disaster of 2015, right? What happened by then at Basantapur? What happened by then during this Sabha Mandap and all? And if we are allowed to use drone to do recce's and all, by then it will be much more easier. But that thing has not been grasped by the policies. So such gap prevails in each and every policies there. So we have to mitigate them. And I once again stress that this disaster risk reduction and response, this has to be a down to top approach. But till now, it has been top to down approach. So that is the main crux of the problem.
Thank you, Dr. Molla. So now we can see that the technological advancement is the one part, and there is another part, the data set, the local units, the layman's that is actually going to use this data, is actually going to get benefited from this data. So there is this technological gap also, and there is also the policy level gap. The various approaches, top to down approaches or bottom to up approaches. So how you see, Dr. Adhikari, these things actually can be bridged, the policy and the science, and also the local units, the local peoples can actually be benefited through the academic institution. There is one of the challenges for awareing the policymaker, and another is preparing the data set that is quite usable by the local community. The proper research need to be done over there. So how do you think academic institution has this critical part to play? What can be done?
Thank you, Sunilji. This is very, very pertinent question, and we need to really address that. And being an academician and working in the university, I should take this lead to answer, and thanks for asking me. So university is a universe. So we have both formal and informal education. So sometimes we teach our student within the classroom about these technologies, what we are talking now. And sometimes we go to the community or the field to use those data without students or the community leaders. But the point is that how are we transferring our knowledge to the society? So the concept is that science to the society. So we academician or we scientists are always happy if we publish a paper in Science or Nature. But the real needy people, they are in the ground. So that's why if you look the priority of the Sendai framework, this the priority one is understanding of disaster risks. So that is the major point where the academicians or the university people can really work on. In the context of Nepal, for example, there are lots of policies that Janak sir and the Susan Ji were talking about. There are lots of policies, but these policies are or were based on ad hoc and not supported by the field evidences. So I'll give you one example. When I went to the field and then started to talk with the community about implementing landslide early warning system, and those people, they're living in their places for centuries, and they know their land, but they don't understand my language. So when I saw the 3D model to them, and they understood, and they just told, "Person, sir, we have seen already the cracks and so on and on and on." They started to, talk themselves. So this is how you have to, translate these science to the society. Similarly, for the policy making, what we are talking after the, establishment of this act, DRM Act and the NDRRMA. So this is the nodal minister or the organization which draft the policy with the help of different other ministries, but it's still how we are going to achieve that. So I will just post one link in chat box where I had analyzed the policy gap actually, the plans and policy in Nepal for landslide risk reduction. Why are not we able to control the landslide in local level? So there are different, hierarchical differences, hierarchical misunderstanding, and then the mismatch between political actors. So that needs to be integrated in our policy where the university, people like us can contribute. The another one is that the university education should be reformed. Up to now, in the university system in Nepal, we are teaching on the classical style in most of the subjects. The things are already advanced, and the professors like us should be advanced to give them new knowledge, where our graduates finally go to the government or private sectors. I saw that the Uttamji was mentioning that the private sectors are really working on a very good way. So our student will go there, and so we need to teach them how to utilize this kind of information for informing the policymakers, not only in the government but also the private institutions where they draft their own policy as well. So this is the huge or the long process where we need to work together, different actors, not the only university, like the society what we are advocating now. So this is the point of departure for advancing our science to the society. Thank you. Over to you, Sunilji.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. So, जुन हिसाबले अहिलेको डिस्कसनहरु चलिरहेको छ, so there we can see the question from Uttam sir. So it's probably on data duplication. So many organizations are working on their own way. The private sectors are also capturing the data. And there is this governmental organization, actually the survey department, who is very much responsible for making the best data sets. As Janak sir also mentioned that the western part of the country has been mapped through the LiDAR technology. So there is this technological advancement is also there. And so it's more about spatial data infrastructure and how the duplication of a data can be reduced so the resources can be allocated elsewhere. So कसरी चाहिँ गभर्नमेन्ट अर्गनाइजेसनले चाहिँ लिड लिन सक्छ होला यो कुराहरुमा र जुन हिसाबको जियो पोर्टल बनाएको छौं त्यसलाई चाहिँ सेन्ट्रल डाटाबेसको रूपमा स्थापित गर्न सकिन्छ र इम्प्लिमेन्ट गर्न सकिन्छ र डिजास्टर लगायत अन्य थुप्रै विधाहरूमा चाहिँ योगदान पुर्याउन सकिन्छ होला? जनक सर.
Yes, I was going through the question posed by Uttam. Actually, the idea is that we need to share the data among all data users. And that is why NSDI is there, National Spatial Data Infrastructure Division under the Department of Survey. The idea is there are various institutions who create the data. Thematic data can be created by each organizations for their use, but the fundamental data should be created and managed by national mapping organizations. So on top of those fundamental data, the relevant organization, as per their jurisdiction, they can create their own data. मैले यसलाई नेपालीमा भन्न चाहे विषय अधिकार क्षेत्रको हो, कुरो अधिकार क्षेत्रको हो, जुरिस्डिक्सन भनेर जसलाई हामीले भन्छौं. विभिन्न इन्स्टिट्युसनहरुको आफ्नो जुरिस्डिक्सन हुन्छ. इट इज डिफाइन्ड बाय द डिफरेंट एक्ट्स और द रेगुलेशन्स. नेपाल सरकार कार्य विभाजन नियमावली भन्ने छ. त्यसले चाहिँ विभिन्न संस्थाहरूलाई विभिन्न किसिमको आफ्नो कामसित सम्बन्धित डेटा तयार गर्ने एक किसिमको म्यान्डेट दिएको हुन्छ. तर जुन मेन फन्डामेन्टल डेटा हो त्यो डेटा सर्वे डिपार्टमेन्टले नेशनल म्यापिङ अर्गनाइजेसन भएको नाताले त्यसले तयार गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. इट क्यान बी शेयर्ड, इट क्यान बी युज्ड बाय एभ्री इन्स्टिट्युसन्स, बट द कस्टोडियनशिप अफ दोज डेटा बिलोंग्स टु सर्वे डिपार्टमेन्ट. On top of that, each thematic institution can have their own data and that can be shared also. In this way, we can reduce the duplication, and this is what the concept of NSDI. But nowadays, what we see, as Dr. Srijan was talking about this fact also, उहाँले पनि के भन्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो भने विभिन्न निकायहरूले जुन हामीले तयार गरिरहेका छौं अथवा जुन डेटा छ त्यसको एक किसिमले टप डाउन एप्रोच भइरहेको छ, हुनुपर्ने बटम अप एप्रोचबाट हुनु पर्थ्यो भन्ने कुरो छ. अहिले अब चाहिँ के भइरहेछ भने हामीलाई के कस्तो डेटा चाहिन्छ, हामी यस्तो चाहिएला सबैलाई भन्ने सोचेर तयार गरेर दिइरहेका छौं. हामी चाहिँ सप्लाई बेसिसमा चाहिँ काम गरिरहेका छौं. अब त्यो डिमान्ड बेसिसमा आउन पर्यो. नम्बर 1 त हामीलाई यस्तो डेटा चाहिन्छ, दिस काइन्ड अफ डेटा शुड बी क्रिएटेड एन्ड दिस काइन्ड अफ डेटा कुड बी शेयर्ड. त त्यो हुनुपर्ने र त्यो डेटा आएको सबैले एक आपसमा आफ्नो आवश्यकता अनुसार त्यसलाई कस्टमाइज गर्ने, युज गर्ने हुन सक्ने, त्यसको रेगुलेसन र त्यसको चाहिँ एक किसिमले जुन नियमनको पार्ट छ त्यो सर्वे डिपार्टमेन्टले हेर्नुपर्ने. अब यो पनि कस्तो त भएको छ भने यसलाई म विशेष गरी नेपालीमै भन्न चाहे. अरूले अब यो हामी चाहिँ सित्तैमा पायो भने जे पनि लिने भन्ने किसिमको सोच हाम्रा निकायहरूमा भएको छ. त्यसैले यो इन्टरनेशनल डेभलपमेन्ट पार्टनर्सहरू अथवा डोनर अर्गनाइजेसन्सहरू जसलाई हामीले भन्छौं, उहाँहरूले कुनै सहायता हामीलाई दियो यो डेटा बनाउन पर्यो भने हामी नसोचिकनै लिइहाल्छौं. त्यही केस भएको हो. उत्तमले अघि जुन भनिरहनु भएको थियो, यो अर्बन डिपार्टमेन्टले अथवा यो संघीय मामिला अन्तर्गत स्थानीय तहले अथवा गृह मन्त्रालय अन्तर्गत डिजास्टर त्यो सित सम्बन्धित इन्स्टिट्युसनहरूले जे दिए, अरूले युएसएडले दियो अथवा अर्कोले दियो, लिदियो, काम गरिदियो, के काम भइरहेछ, कसरी भइरहेछ, त्यो काम अगाडि भएको छ कि छैन, त्योसँग कसैलाई सरोकार भएन. त्यसैले एउटा चाहिँ जुरिस्डिक्सनको कुरो क्लियर हुन पर्यो, कसले के गर्ने, हु शुड डु व्हाट. अर्को के हुन पर्यो भने कोअर्डिनेसन एमङ द इन्स्टिट्युसन्स. जो डेटा बनाउने, डेटा क्रिएट गर्ने अथवा डेटा युज गर्ने, उनीहरूको एउटा कोअर्डिनेसन हुन पर्यो. व्हाट वी अलरेडी ह्याभ एन्ड व्हाट वी नीड टु डु नाउ. र त्यसका लागि एनएसडीआई भन्ने प्लेटफर्म, एनजीआईआई भन्ने प्लेटफर्म जुन छ त्यसले काम गर्छ भनिएको हो. अब डेटा पोर्टल भनेर यहाँ साथीहरूले जुन उठाउनु भएको छ, त्यो डेटा पोर्टल इज one of the component that is developed by NSDI initiatives, and whatever data we have within survey department or within our organization, the metadata of those data is posted on the Geo portal, and every needy organization, every data user can go through the data portal and can see, look or get थ्रु द्याट डेटा पोर्टल। त्यसैले यो डुप्लिकेसन हटाउने हो भने अघि पनि भनियो पोलिसी हामीले हेर्न पर्यो। त्यो पोलिसी हेर्नका लागि पोलिसी मेकर अवेर हुन पर्यो। उनीहरूलाई हामीले यो यस्तो हो भन्ने कुरा क्लियरली बुझाउन सक्न पर्यो र त्यसपछि इन्टर मिनिस्ट्रियल अथवा इन्टर इन्स्टिट्युसन एउटा कोअर्डिनेसन मेकानिजम हुन पर्यो जुन एनएसडिआईले अथवा त्यसले गर्न पर्यो। त्यो भयो भने हामीले यो चाहिँ डुप्लिकेसनको समस्या हटाउन सक्छौं र जुन वेस्टेज अफ रिसोर्सेस, वेस्टेज अफ टाइम, वेस्टेज अफ एफर्ट र अरु कुराहरु यहाँले पोइन्ट आउट गर्नु भएको छ त्यसलाई वी क्यान सर्ट इट आउट। थ्यांक यू
जोशी सर। सो अब जुन हिसाबले हामीले अब डिजास्टरको कुराहरु गरिरहेका छौं, डाटा सेट चाहिँ सेन्टरमा हुने भयो। डाटा सेट आवश्यक हुन्छ डिजास्टर लगायत अन्य धेरै विधाहरूको लागि र जियोमेटिक्स प्रोफेसनल चाहिँ जुन हिसाबको स्पेशल डाटा एक्वायर गर्छ, म्याप गर्छ अनि भिजुअलाइज गर्छ, त्यसले सबै कम्युनिटीहरूलाई चाहिँ हामीले जुन हिसाबको योगदानहरू दिन सकिरहेका छौं त्यसलाई चाहिँ तपाईहरुले अझ एक हिसाबले यो अझै गर्नुपर्ने बाँकी छ भन्ने हिसाबले हाइलाइट पनि गरिदिनु भयो। त्यसको लागि पनि धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद।
सुनिलजी एउटा सानो कुरा थपौं सुनिलजी?
हुन्छ।
सरी मैले बीचमा गरे तर मलाई भन्न मन लाग्यो यहाँ चाहिँ कुरो कसरी उठिरहेको जस्तो मलाई लाग्यो भने सबै डेटा त्यो पोर्टलमा हुनुपर्छ र सबै किसिमका डेटा एउटै ठाउँमा हुनुपर्छ, त्यसको ब्याङ्क हुनुपर्छ कि भन्ने किसिमले कुरो उठे जस्तो लाग्यो। त्यो होइन। हामीसँग एउटै पोर्टलमा सबै डेटा ल्याएर डेटा ब्याङ्क अथवा रिपोजिटरी हुनुपर्ने र त्यो चाहिँ त्यो वान साइज फिट्स अल अथवा त्यो चाहिँ एउटा जसलाई जे चाहियो त्यहीबाट झिक्ने किसिमको चाहिँ होइन। त्यहाँ चाहिँ डेटाहरूको बारेमा सम्पूर्ण इन्फर्मेसन त्योसँग हुन पर्यो। कुन डेटा कहिले बनाएको, कसले बनाएको, कहाँ उपलब्ध छ, कुन कामका लागि युज हुन सक्छ भन्ने मेटा डेटा शुड बी अवेलेबल अन द clearing house and that data portal, and you can access through it, and that portal leads you to the appropriate data where you can find it. So that acts as a clearing house but not as a data repository or the data bank where you can get everything in one stop.
Thank you Joshi sir for the clarification. म यसैमा पनि आउन खोजिरहेको थिएँ। जुन हिसाबले चाहिँ डाटा सेट सेन्ट्रल हिसाबले एउटा कुराहरु भयो, तर डिजास्टरको बेला जुन हिसाबले चाहिँ क्विक रेस्पोन्सहरु गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ र सृजन सरले अघि पनि भन्नुभयो ड्रोनको जुन हिसाबको अहिले चाहिँ आएको छ, जुन हिसाबले चाहिँ क्विक एसेसमेन्टहरु गर्न सक्छ रेस्क्यु एन्ड म्यानेजमेन्टको लागि, त्यसको लागि चाहिने पोलिसिजहरु र अरु सपोर्टिङ पोलिसिजहरु जुन चाहिँ हाम्रो प्रोफेसनल सर्वेयर भनौं, ड्रोन अपरेटर भनौं, जसको मार्फतमा चाहिँ हामीले क्रिटिकल इन्फर्मेसनहरु चाहिँ ल्याउन सक्छौं, त्यसको लागि चाहिँ पोलिसी डेभलप चाहिँ कसरी हुन सक्छ, एकाडेमिकली कसरी हुन सक्छ अनि फिल्डमा कुन हिसाबले चाहिँ अवेयर गर्न सकिन्छ, यो ड्रोन भनेको यो डाटाको लागि हो, डराउनु पर्दैन है भनेर चाहिँ लोकलहरुलाई चाहिँ कसरी बुझाउन सकिन्छ र जुन हिसाबको गभर्नमेन्टल अर्गनाइजेसन को रिप्रेजेन्टेसन गर्नुहुन्छ जोशी सर, त्यसको लागि चाहिँ लोकल एन्टरप्रेन्योर भनौं, उहाँहरुले चाहिँ के आशा राख्न सक्छौं?
अब यसमा सबैभन्दा ठूलो कुरो त के हो भने हामीले कन्भिन्स गर्न सक्नुपर्ने विषय एउटा छँदैछ, त्यसको बारेमा मैले अघि भनिसकेँ, अब म त्यसमा दोहोर्याउन चाहन्न। तर सबैभन्दा ठूलो कुरो के हो भने स्थानीय तहले कसरी त्यो कुरालाई ग्रहण गरेको छ र उहाँहरूलाई के चाहिएको छ र त्यो उहाँहरूको निड उहाँहरूले भन्ने हो र उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ तपाईहरुलाई यस्तो भयो भने यसरी हुन सक्छ है भन्ने फेसिलिटेसन हाम्रो प्रोफेसनलहरूले गर्ने र प्रोफेसनलहरूले त्यसका लागि के कस्तो किसिमको पोलिसी आवश्यकता पर्दछ भन्ने कुरो आइदियो भने अब त्यसलाई चाहिँ अनि चाहिँ त्यसमा रिसर्च हुने कुराहरु, त्यसमा अझै इन्भेन्सन अथवा अघि भन्नुभयो त्यसमा चाहिँ अझै फर्दर इनरिच गर्नुपर्ने, भ्याल्यु एड गर्नुपर्ने कुराहरु के छ त्यो प्रोफेसनलहरुले गर्नुपर्ने विषय भयो र यसलाई युनिभर्सिटीहरुले, एकाडेमियाले अझ रिसर्च गरेर अगाडि ल्यायो भने त्यो डेटा, फिल्डको डेटा need of the local institution अनि त्यसमा प्रोफेसनलहरूले गरेको प्र्याक्टिस र फिल्डमा आएको उहाँहरूले हेरेको डेटा त्यो सिचुएसन र त्यसमा युनिभर्सिटीको हरूको अथवा यस्ता किसिमका एकाडेमियाहरूको जुन रिसर्च छ त्यसको फाइन्डिङका आधारमा पोलिसी बन्नुपर्ने हो पोलिसी इभिडेन्स बेस्ड पोलिसी जुन मैले सुरुमा भने त्यसैले अब जुन प्रोफेसनल अर्गनाइजेसनहरू अथवा एकाडेमियाहरू गभर्नमेन्टहरू र लोकल इन्स्टिट्युसनहरू मिलेर काम गर्नु एउटा कोल्याबोरेसनमा एउटा कोअपरेसनमा एउटा पार्टनरशिपमा काम गर्नुको विकल्प अहिलेलाई छैन यदि हामीले आइसोलेसनमा काम गर्यौं भने अघि भने जस्तै त्यो ड्रोन उडाउनु पर्ने नै बसन्तपुर माथि छ बसन्तपुर दरबार स्क्वायरलाई कहाँ कति क्षति पुग्यो भनेर नजिकबाट हामीले त्यसको चाहिँ भ्यूहरू लिनुपर्ने छ अब त्यही ड्रोन उडाउन पाइन्न भने त्यो पोलिसीको के काम त्यो टेक्नोलोजीको के काम त्यसो भएको हुनाले कस्तो ठाउँमा कसरी हामीले डेटा लिन सक्छौं कस्तो किसिमको हामीलाई आवश्यक पर्छ त्यसै किसिमले हामीले त्यो पोलिसी बनाउनु पर्ने हुन्छ र यसका लागि चाहिँ अघि भने जस्तै यो सबैको सहकार्य सबैको एक किसिमको सँगै मिलेर काम गर्ने र त्यो नीड लोकल नीडलाई चाहिँ हाम्रो चाहिँ रिसर्चले ब्याक गर्ने डेटाले ब्याक गर्ने इभिडेन्सले सपोर्ट गर्ने गरी आउने र त्यसलाई पोलिसी मेकरले पोलिसीमा उतार्ने काम गरिदियो भने हामी सबै चाहिँ एक किसिमले हाम्रो जुन सोच हो त्यसमा सफल हुन्छौं जस्तो लाग्छ
थ्यांक यू जोशी सर सो हामीसँग अर्को एउटा क्वेशन आएको छ विप्लव राखेलबाट सो क्वेशन चाहिँ नेपाल नेशनल स्पेस एप्लिकेसन सेन्टर बनाउनलाई चाहिँ के गर्न सकिन्छ र जुन हिसाबको यसबाट हुने फाइदाहरू हुन सक्छ डिजास्टरको बेला चाहिँ क्रिटिकल इन्फर्मेसनहरू पाउने कुराहरू भयो अनि अरु कुराहरू पनि यसमा चाहिँ केही प्रकाश पारिदिन हुनलाई डाक्टर अधिकारी as you are the academician and advanced technologies how earth observation data is actually can be captured through the space borne technologies and what are its necessary steps and where we are as a country for space development program I guess Biplav Rakhel actually you can also put your comments in the chat probably after this question we'll open the floor for the audiences so back to you Mr. Adhikari it's about space technology where we are and why is it very necessary for disaster risk reduction airborne data set acquisition and related metadata.
Thank you, Sunilji. I think Joshi sir is the right person to answer that. But from the university perspective, I totally agree, Joshi sir, that people, they always want data, sometimes for nothing. For example, after 2015 earthquake, we have terabyte of data and nobody is using that. So it's just dumping of data and then people, they proud that they have data, you know. So data is data. If you do not interpret that, is nothing. So I come to your question. So when you talk about, space-borne technologies to gather in terms of Nepal, there's a UN agency, maybe all of us, we know that they are mostly focusing on this, spatial technology or space-based technologies for disaster risk reduction. Very sorry to say that we are very, very primitive stage to, take this data from our side. We need to ask, some other agencies or other governments, our, neighbors or other countries to provide those data. But we need, I totally agree with Biplavji that we need a National Space Application Center. We didn't have our satellite. It's very early to say that we'll have our satellites in 10 years down the road, but it's still, when we have this National Space Application Center, then we can gather data from outsourcing or taking data from our neighbors, for example, from China. that were, Joshi sir knows better than me, that we are using or we are getting 1 or 2 meter resolution data from Chinese government, and we have Indian counterpart where we can use their satellite or acquire information and then put those information in this application center where we can train our students or practitioners or policymakers to that center for visualizing this data. So we need, and we are in the primitive stage for that. So I stop here. Maybe Joshi sir can elaborate on that.
Shall I speak, Sunilji?
Yeah, Joshi sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. And with the question regarding Mr. Biplab Rakhal has posted here, I think we wish we could have our own space center. Actually, the key is how we manage to use the geospatial data, how we can cooperate, we can, work in the coordination, close coordination among our neighbors, and can get benefit from their, strength. As in a least developed country, but of course we are planning to be graduated to LDC in 2026. We cannot, afford to have everything our own. We need to share, of course, within the country or within our neighbors. Like Basant sir already mentioned, we are getting 2 meter resolutions data from Chinese government. And in such conditions, in such situations, all of our neighbors, our development partners, and other countries, they offer us the data what we need. So it would be very nice, it would be very good to have our own space center, our own satellite. But even if we do not have those facility on our own, we can manage to have such kind of data with proper partnership among our friends and neighbors. SDG goal number 17, that is partnership. So this can also be promoted, and we can get benefit from the professional societies or the experts or the scientists all around the world in those kind of situations.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. So, Dr. Molla, we are now wrapping the program. We have the panelist has mentioned that there are data sets and some manpowers, resources, and policies that need to be worked on. What else you think that is actually required? What kind of strategies? What kind of platform is actually required to bring this space technology, to bring this drone technology, so that it can actually be used and we can be benefited for disaster risk reduction?
Thank you, Sunil sir. And let's not confine our question to just drone and this information technology. Let's see this in the broad aspect. Let's say like how we can strengthen our disaster governance, like in the days to come, so that we can use everything, these data, technologies, and space, like this space information and all, so that we can make this disaster response, risk reduction and response venture much more effective in the days to come. So like there are a few points I want to highlight. First and foremost is we have to make this DRR venture the national priority. So that is the most lacking thing, from the political level to the bureaucrats and up to the local public servant, and even in private sector as well. This DRR has remained an ad hoc venture. Yes, of course, we have established this act. Now there is NDRRMA functioning as the chief coordinator. But like we just like delve in ourselves, have we given the utmost priority, the required priority to this venture? Like I'll give you an example. Like putting this NDRRMA under one thematic ministry cannot effectively do all these things, all these responsibilities of this coordination from top to level, these horizontal and verticals. And, yes, of course, the NDRRMA team is working very hard, but like their hands and feet are tied, If we see in our neighboring states, what we see, Even in India, they have NDRF, this NDMA, right? But that is under the direct premiership of the Prime Minister. We have, like in many countries like Malaysia, even in Sri Lanka as well, they have a separate ministry to look after this venture, right? And they have given due resources. They have given due this career path. What we're lacking here is in Nepalese government, DRR is not a separate career path. It is just an ad hoc career path. Even in security forces as well. So until and unless we give this due this priority, this thing is it takes years and years, even in decades. That could be done in 2-3 years, or in less than 5. So first one is that, and the second one, as I said earlier, we have to give space to these science-based policies. We have to bring programs, we have to induct this disaster education in schools and colleges, and we have to give fundings for the resources. We have to sort out the topics. We have to make this research and development center within this NDRRMA, whatever we say. So we need that sort of priority. And apart from that, resources come to the forefront. I'll give you an example. If you look at the budget title of this 𝗿𝙤𝙨𝗏, what do you call that? This finance ministry's the BS, I think.
LMDIS.
Yes. If we check that, there is no title for this disaster. So till now, no budget has been allocated for this disaster preparedness and risk reductions. Yes, there is a fund, but that is used only for what? Relief work, right? So we have not been this giving and this allocating the required resources. Janak sir rightly said, Basanta sir rightly said that we are much more dependent on these foreign aids, foreign investment. But that is just for the timing, no? For this long-lasting and this sustainable development, we need to invest our own resources. We need to allocate our own resources for this science and technology as well. We have to separate at least few millions rupees, few crores and few lakhs, at the beginning. And later on, we can expand it. So that sort of priority is needed here. And then the last one is, as I said earlier, we have to use the social medias and medias as well, for the sensitization of the people, right? For the sensitization of these local people, of these students, these rural people, urban people, and everyone. What we see here is media is, of course, doing their job, but that is just a temporal or seasonal. Whenever floods comes, they used to write something, they used to broadcast something, but for the rest of the months and rest of the period, they used to keep silent. That is not going to work. So we have to bring a kind of this holistic approach, this all-out effort from every part and parcels of this national states mechanism, from public, from medias, from these academicians, from these government agencies, even these private sectors. So we have to work in that module, in that line, in that course of actions. Then only we can strengthen our this science and technologies, data things, management things, and then there's research and everything. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mullah. So as we have now finished our panel discussion session, so let me just summarize everything that we have 3 panelists. One is Mr. Joshi, who is representing the government and policy making of the country. He is representing land management, Ministry of Land Administration and Poverty Alleviation. So we have the academician, Dr. Adhikari, and we have the industrial practitioner, the disaster risk reduction activist and the expert, Dr. Mullah. So all the panelists agree upon that data set is in the center, and for the disaster, data need to be actually acquired and should be made available for everyone for quick disaster response and management. So everything is in the center. The data is in the center. So there is the science, the way of the visualization, and the technology that we are actually implementing. Is other presenters also highlighted how this BPER technology is actually progressing and is actually doing all this management of this data set, and how it is acting as a repository, and also the clearing is also visualizing the data. And it is felt that the awareness, proper awareness among the policymaker and also the industrial uses of a data set need to be actually addressing the local people needs. So this is the challenge. The way the academician is putting the research work, and the local peoples are actually the layman's that are not understanding the uses of this kind of a data set. Is Dr. Adhikari also mentioned that they have the data, but the data is of no use. It's just in the documentation part. So there is this geospatial technology that has been implemented for actually creating the base maps of the whole Nepal, creating the landscapes, and also the river lines and everything that is kind of necessary for visualizing the disaster, and also predicting the disaster and modeling the disaster. And there is also a need for bottom-up approach. So there need to be awareness, and there need to be a technological advancement. The technological advancement is required for addressing the local people's need for disaster risk reduction. So these are the summary that I have pinpointed right now. So I would like to take some final keynotes from all of the panelists. So Dr. Molla, your final key takeaways from this panel discussion, please.
Thank you, Sunil. Very interesting, informative, and definitely a conducive environment you created. And thank you so much for this effort. And thank you so much for your nice presentation, the formal presentators, and Janak sir and Vasantav sir. Thank you very much for your very informative insights and good notes. And yes, of course, as the last note from my side, I again say that we have to strengthen these disaster governments. We have to give due required priority from the government side. That is first and foremost, so that we can strengthen in the days to come. And of course, the use of this data, information, and science and technology is it's much more important in this DRR venture, DRR field. With this, we cannot fight against this disaster war. I call it a war, and disaster is our enemy that is always one step ahead of us. We'll not know what kind of threat is coming tomorrow. Till now in Nepal, we have not thought about this hazmat, these hazardous materials disasters. So tomorrow we may have that as well, but we are lacking such insights, discourse, and these means and methods to counter them, and we have to deal them in the days to come. With this, thank you very much once again. Thank you, Sunil sir.
Thank you, Dr. Molla. He is actually reaching out to us from Dadeldura. So he's in the site, the man in the site, man in the battlefield. So over to you, Dr. Adhikari. Your final keynotes, please.
Thank you, Sunilji. As I started my presentation, so pleased to be here. And at the end, I have lots of knowledge now from my esteemed colleagues and participants. When I started reading maps in my undergrad in the field, I met one army retired personnel from Indian Army. And I was carrying this, this pin map, what we call topographical map of Nepal, 1:25,000. And then he was just looking this map, and he was telling us map to the ground and ground to the map. So now we are using this smartphone, cell phone, and this is the same principles, but with the advanced technology. So my takeaway message for tonight is that we need to advance our mindset, our thinking. We have to be broad enough or wise enough to use these advanced technologies for disaster risk reduction and our daily life. Thank you. Over to you, Sunilji.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. So much to take away from you, as you are the academician that is shaping the world, as you already mentioned, that university is the universe. And here we are preparing the next generation of the mapping expert for the disaster risk reduction here. And finally, over to you, Mr. Joshi, sir. So we want to hear from you, your final keynotes.
Agreeing with both speakers and without repeating my previous, remarks, one final remarks from my side is the disaster happens in the local territory or the local, area. Local institutions are the first one who witness and who suffer from the disaster. But those local institutions, most of them do not have capacity to cope up those disasters. So I think, and the foremost important, we need to have the geo-enabled local institutions. In each and every modern day task, they need to plan, they need to execute. So they need to have the geo information or the geo expert or geo enabling environment, geo capacity to the local institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi, sir. Thank you all the three panelists, as you are the leader in your field and leading this geospatial disaster risk reduction and also the academic world. So we will have your guidance in the future as well. We can see that still there are 60 participants here. In this Zoom meeting, we hit the maximum 100 participants, and there are some friends that are joining in the Facebook as well as in the YouTube channel. So thank you all. Thank you for your patience. And as a geomatics engineer and as a family, Nepal Geomatics Engineering Society, we thank every speakers and every panelist who saved today's and has really helped us in marking International Disaster Day. Thank you all. And finally, we'll hear from our president, Mr. Arun Bhandari, who is also the co-founder of NGES and also the GITE. So over to you, Arun sir. And this is Sunil Bugati signing off for now. Thank you for bearing me till now. So bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you, Sunil. Can you hear me well? Thank you, Sunil, and the rest of the organizing team for making this happen. I'd like to thank a lot to the panelists who have, despite their busy schedules, joined the program and made this so insightful. And also to the speakers who presented about their notable works around DRR and use of geospatial technologies in Nepal. I think I'd also like to resonate on the same spirit all the speakers have put forward today, that it is quite critical to leverage the latest geospatial technologies available and being innovated around the globe in the local disaster context of Nepal. And a lot of private sectors, government organizations, and stakeholders have been doing that, trying to do that in Nepal, make things happen and make disasters more predictable as well as manageable. We cannot always prevent disasters from happening because a lot of these are not under our control. A lot of climate-induced disasters have been we've been seeing that a lot in the recent times, and we can do a lot in preventing them, but we can really do a lot in managing them or doing some early action. So the whole spirit of this year's celebration of the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction around early action and early warning for all, I think we've tried to do our part, because as geomatics professionals, we really think that if you're not able to measure something, you can't really manage it. So the surveying and mapping will be the foundational sector that will allow you to measure things. We used to be like measuring land terrains and everything, but now I think we have more sophisticated technologies that will help us simulate and model and predict things based on the natural terrain and scientific patterns. So with that, I think it has been a quite interesting conversation. Listening to all of you, I think it is not enough. A 2 or 3 hours discussion is not going to be enough. So NGES will be looking forward to organizing similar kinds of programs in the future. This has been a quite abrupt decision to organize this program in such a short time. But next time we'll try and be more like physical and in-person talk programs, and maybe more practical programs in the future. I'd like to thank the organizing team, the team members I have in the Nepal Geomatics Engineering Society, for making this happen. I'd like to thank again the panelists who have agreed to participate despite their schedule and in a short notice. The presenters who have presented earlier, a lot of interesting things we could see. I am representing NGES as well, which is also working in disaster risk reduction and data generation for DRR since 6-7 years now. And I know all the troubles and all the difficulties we have, but I think with this kind of sharing and collaborative platforms, we'll be able to do more than we could do individually. Thanks again to everyone who have attended. I think there's half of the attendants who are with us here, but I think you all had a pretty productive time attending this program. And on behalf of Nepal Geomatics Engineering Society, we will look forward to doing more actively organizing similar events in the future. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next program, hopefully. Thank you. Namaste. I think we can wrap this up without much delay now. Thank you again.
Yeah. Good night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.